Hi, I'm Robert Dutt, editor of CRN Canada. I'm here with Ron Hulse from Samsung Canada. Ron?
Nice to see you, Robert.
Pleasure having you out here at Tides of Change today. And one of the things that kind of hit me, you touched on it a few times, was the sense of, for the time you were out in this industry, it feels like old times. Can you sort of take us through the similarities of the conversation that you saw today versus the conversations that you saw?
Well, I was saying around our table that while we're complaining about the shrinking margins and we're talking about how hard it is to stay on top of it and make money, 10 to 12 years ago we were talking about margins that had shrunk from 30 points to 20 points, and sadly today we're talking about margins that have shrunk down to single digit and in some cases zero, with everything coming in the back end. And we built all this infrastructure today, which we talked many times about, of organizations that don't have the excess of manpower having to build this just to process and pull back profit into their business. And at some point you have to question, does that make sense for our industry? And should resellers participate in that? Or, as our distribution panel suggested, is there a way to aggregate that capability and share that infrastructure almost along the y-axis through this reseller community and take the pressure off them so that they can put the feet in the street, they can put service people in front of their customers, they can put solutions architects talking to these customers, and more importantly, have the marketing capability to start determining how they will survive this economic crisis. Because really, I think we market our way out of it, but for the next 6, 12, 18 months, it's a question of survival. You know, cash preservation, don't go broad. Nick Tidd talked about wanting to pursue opportunity. While I don't disagree that you should pursue opportunity as it presents itself, I strongly believe that you need to be very discreet about where you expand off your base, off your customer base, off your technology base. Do what you do today, do it better, do it to the advantage of the customer, and make sure that you don't stray beyond and use cash needlessly with risk.
What do you see as some of the things that you can do at Samsung specifically, and the vendor community writ large, to help facilitate that kind of healthy focus within the channel, to call it?
One thing for sure is this type of dialogue across vendors and through to our partners, and more importantly, actually listening to the partners. This is a great forum to sit back and hear, both at the end customer level, at the partner level, and at the distributor level, because really, as a manufacturer or vendor, you serve multi customers. So it was great to hear the perspective of the distributor, who we use time, place, utility, and they provide credit to the marketplace. And then a series of value-added services that I think we often overlook and try to duplicate ourselves. So our role is to constantly stay current on what is available through the entire supply chain and the sales chain right to the end customer, and make sure that what we do doesn't assume that it's a value, that it's a tested value, that it's a needed value, that people actually want it. Because where we build that cost, we pass it through some ways in, decimal points of pennies in cost. So I think it's incumbent to do a couple of key things as a vendor. The research to stay technologically advantaged and to perfect our manufacturing system, and then to work with our partners at every level in the supply chain to make sure that we take cost out. And then the second thing we need to do is continue to present a vote of confidence and work with those resellers and distributors that want to work in a collaborative manner. And frankly, we talked about drilling down deep and not going as broad. That may be an option we have to go to, where we're selective about how we work with. And I think, again, in this unprecedented economic crisis, all bets are off. It is a survival thing. And, we don't sell things directly. If they don't survive, we don't survive in this segment. We can go back to being an OEM, but that doesn't help fortify them and grow the brand Samsung. So we lose if they lose. This is a big bet. We have to make them or help them be successful, and that means we listen and respond.
What are you telling bars in terms of their ability to communicate value in the sense of a business value, which in return carries with it a healthy margin, given all of these pressures that are coming on in terms of credit, in terms of tightening budgets within end user organizations?
Well, when they ask, which they rarely do, and I understand, when they ask, what we always suggest to them is, don't live on inventory. Inventory isn't an advantage. You have distribution that can help you with that. Live on owning and understanding the customer relationship and helping them address the business issues, which, by the way, are the same business issues you have. Their survival today, their cash preservations, their return on assets, their return on invested dollars. Help them with technological, manpower solutions that may take cost off the balance sheet and put it into the expense side. That's where they have a big advantage. And I encourage them to think that way. We're looking at that ourselves. Do we need this overhead every day? We're very lean, frankly. We don't have a lot of feet on the street compared to our competitors. But even with that leanness, we always question, is that investment long-term worth our while? Or should we be turning to this community and empowering them and passing on that responsibility, which just puts more pressure on us to communicate effectively? So, you know, there isn't bad advice here. There's, and resellers are smart enough, the ones that are in this room are the survivors, and the ones that are in this room are smart enough to recognize that they invested thinking about how to survive is time well spent. So I'm more than willing to give that time and to be a part of what I believe is a strategy for long-term survival.
Great point. Thank you very much for your time, Ron.
Thank you very much for having me.